Ma'am, are you really married? X. Excuse me? What do you mean? I had hired a private investigator for a certain investigation. From the report of that investigator, I heard an unexpected fact that left me unable to hide my shock. If my husband has been exploiting my frequent night shifts to have a sweet affair, I will never forgive him. My name is Rachel. I am a nurse at a general hospital and a working wife who is about to celebrate her first Christmas since getting married. My husband Daniel, whom I married half a year ago, is a very gentle man who is 5 years older than me. We met at a social gathering, and we hit it off because we had the same last name. We got married as we entered our 4th year of dating. Daniel's parents had already passed away, and he said he had no relatives, so we ended with a photo wedding instead of having a wedding ceremony. Daniel is an area manager of a retail store. He basically works at a branch, but he also goes on business trips to the head office and visits various stores. I don't have any children yet, and I thought I should earn money when I can, so I mainly take night shifts. Thanks to that, I can relax on my days off after night shifts, and I think I have more days off than other jobs because a night shift counts as 2 days of work. Daniel's job did not have fixed days off, so he often adjusted to match my days off. We enjoyed our newlywed life by going on mini trips and dates. One day, when I came home from a night shift, Daniel, who should have already gone to work, was at home. I'm home. Huh? Daniel, you're not off today, are you? When I asked with curiosity, Daniel opened his mouth with great difficulty and said, well, you see. I have a sudden business trip from tomorrow, and it might be a bit long, so they suddenly gave me the day off today. I see. How long will you be gone? About a week, I think. It might be a little longer, but I won't know until I get there. All right, work hard. I was saddened by the sudden and lengthy business trip. I had a rare consecutive holiday the day after tomorrow, and I was looking forward to spending a slow evening with Daniel. But if it's for work, I had no choice but to switch gears, and I decided to drive Daniel to the airport. It takes about 2 hours by car to the airport. And it takes about 2 hours by plane to the head office in New York. After seeing off Daniel at the airport, I strolled around the airport, which I rarely visit, had lunch at a famous nearby cafe, and returned home. Exhausted, I sprawled out on the sofa, where I spotted an unfamiliar envelope tucked under the TV stand. It must have been something that Daniel, who was supposed to be on a business trip to the head office, had left behind. Feeling a little guilty, I checked inside. Inside was an album filled with pictures of Daniel, an unknown woman, and a little girl, maybe around 5 years old. In front of a kindergarten classroom, dressed in a school uniform. What on earth is this? My mind went blank. Could it be an affair? And with a single mother, unforgivable. Infidelity! The word floated into my mind, and before I knew it, I found myself calling Daniel's office. I mentioned that I knew Daniel, made up a reason, and asked if he was on his trip. To my shock, they told me that Daniel was on bereavement leave. What's more, I was informed that there were hardly any business trips from their branch to the head office. What was going on? Daniel had told me he was away on business, but he was on bereavement leave? I hadn't heard anything about it. He was lying to get time off work, just to meet with the woman and the child in these photos. That was the only conclusion I could come to. I started looking for a detective agency. I decided on one, planning to visit the next day. But all the while, I couldn't shake the realization that in the 4 years we'd been dating, Daniel had been lying to me about these non-existent business trips. A profound emptiness washed over me. Perhaps I was exhausted, because at some point, I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already 6 a.m. the next day. I had an appointment at the detective agency at 10 a.m., so I got ready, carefully placing the envelope I'd found yesterday in a larger bag so it wouldn't fold. At the agreed-upon time, I walked through the gates of a detective agency for the first time in my life. The words I had prepared to say flew out of my head the moment I opened the door to the office. The detective waiting for me was a young man who looked to be in his mid-20s and was dressed like a college student. Reading my surprise, he asked with a casual smile, "You think I am an immature-looking detective, don't you?" And managed to lighten the mood. "Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's just, this is my first time at a place like this. I'm a bit nervous." I responded on impulse, but he kindly urged me to sit on the sofa. After a little small talk with the detective, I took out the album that had led me to suspect Daniel of infidelity. True to form, the detective started collecting necessary evidence, deftly making copies. He picked up a copy of the picture of the three in front of the school and told me, "This is likely to be a significant clue." The name of the school was clearly visible in the photo. Immediately, the detective searched for the preschool online and made a call. He made the call in a separate room, so I had no idea how he extracted the information, but apparently, the little girl in the photo was a student at that preschool. And, unsurprisingly, that child was currently on a leave of absence from the school. The school was located in New York, so I was told it would be an expensive job, but I agreed. Actually, I had been studying and investing in stocks and forex since adulthood. After becoming a working adult, I started investing with my monthly salary, and I've had some decent returns, so I decided to use that money for the investigation. We'd need to fly to New York, and it was unclear how many days it would take to get evidence, but the biggest humiliation for me was being lied to by my husband. I wanted to grab proof at any cost. That determination drove me. The detective seemed to assume that once Daniel returned here, the little girl would also return to preschool. The next day, I went to work as usual. Of course, I put back the envelope and its contents exactly where they were. Then I got a message from Daniel, who was supposed to be away for a week, saying, "Sorry, my business trip is going to be extended by 3 more days. I'll be back on Sunday." As arranged, I contacted the detective the day Daniel returned home. The detective understood and seemed pumped to start the investigation. The next day, he flew to New York and began his preliminary investigation. That evening, I received a call from the detective revealing an unbelievable fact. During the preliminary investigation, an unexpected situation came to light. "What do you mean?" I was totally confused. "I'll be back tomorrow. Can we meet soon?" "Yes, anytime." Responding like that, I promptly headed to the detective's office after finishing my night shift the next day. "So, was he cheating after all?" To my question, the detective seemed to struggle to give an answer. "No, I think this situation might be even more serious," the detective said with a grave look on his face, which made me swallow my words. "Firstly, it's likely true that your husband has taken a leave of absence for bereavement from his company. However, Mrs., are you sure you're really married to Daniel?" "What? What are you implying? We officially registered our marriage 6 months ago." "In fact, I followed Daniel and your daughter back from her kindergarten in New York and found their home. According to the locals, Daniel has been living alone here for the past 4 years, only returning to New York a few times a year. I heard he stayed for about a week for his father-in-law's funeral in New York." "No way!" I was at a loss for words. "Since you and Daniel originally had the same last name, it's hard to say anything at this stage, but I would suggest you check at the city hall," the detective advised. After expressing my thanks, I made my way straight to the city hall. At the city hall, I obtained a copy of the residency certificate for my entire household. What was written on it, however, was only my name. "No way! There must be some mistake. I got married 6 months ago." I appealed loudly to the female city hall staff member who was helping me in my confusion. The staff member, seeming distressed, said, "Even if you say so, we couldn't find any record of your marriage." But I insisted, pleading with her. "Please check it again. My husband's name is Daniel. Please." To my near tears, the staff member repeatedly apologized with genuine remorse. In the midst of my confusion, I recalled the day I had submitted our marriage registration. Despite it being a workday for me, Daniel insisted that it had to be done on that auspicious day and I had to go alone to the city hall to submit our marriage registration. I never would have imagined that our marriage registration was not submitted. After letting my tears flow, my emotions gradually settled down. I apologized and bowed my head, then left the city hall. All I could think about on my way home from my night shift was how tiring everything had been lately. I fell asleep on the sofa, pondering what to do next. When I woke up, Daniel was in the middle of preparing dinner. Seeing him like this reminded me of the woman and the girl in the photo. I was furious about being deceived, but I realized that if I lost my cool now, I wouldn't be able to take any action, so I was able to suppress my emotions. From that day on, I put on a smile in front of Daniel. About a week after going to the city hall, I had been considering whether I could find out anything about his real wife from Daniel's phone or his surroundings. Daniel tends to be quite forgetful, and it seemed that he accidentally left his house without his smartphone that day. I happened to be off, so I considered delivering it to him, but first, I decided to check his phone. Normally, it's not cool to snoop on someone else's phone, but I couldn't afford such decorum at the time. Considering the state of my mental health, I felt I had no choice. Daniel occasionally unlocks his phone while voicing the passcode, so unlocking it was easy. From there, I found the contact of a woman with the girl's picture he always talked about as an icon. I immediately called this woman. Around the third ring, a calm and elegant woman's voice answered. "Hello? Who is this?" When I asked, "Are you Mrs. Daniel Smith?" the woman's tone turned puzzled. "Yes, I am, but who are you?" "I'm someone Daniel met at his outstation. It's hard for me to say this, but we are living together now." "So there really is a woman at his outstation. I see. I was planning to visit my husband who lives there during the end of the year holidays. Can we talk then?" I didn't expect this turn of events. I gladly accepted such a generous offer. Around that time, Daniel said, "Sorry, but there's a reunion in my hometown this New Year's, so I'm going to go back home." I had been waiting for these words from Daniel. Of course, I immediately agreed. According to what his wife told me, Daniel's hometown is the next town over. I heard both his parents had passed away and he had no relatives, but it turns out both parents are alive and well and still living in the next town. There's only 1 month left until the end of the year. I decided to find a lawyer who specializes in relationships and planned to thoroughly punish Daniel. Until the day of the showdown, I acted as usual with Daniel, but emotionally, it was unbearable. And finally, 1 month later, the day of the showdown arrived. I told Daniel I had a night shift starting the night of the 30th and left the house with a smile, saying, "Take care and Happy New Year." Of course, I explained the situation at work and got a vacation from December 30th to January 2nd. I stayed at a business hotel on the 30th, and on the morning of the 31st, I went to the meeting place with Daniel's wife and saw an elegant woman just like in the photos. Her name is Mary, and she married Daniel 6 years ago, and they have a 5-year-old daughter. After briefly discussing each other, Mary and I began executing the plan. Mary came all the way from New York by plane with her parents and her daughter. Since this isn't a story to tell a young child, she left her daughter with her mother in the hotel room. Together with Mary's father, we were heading to Daniel's family home. It seemed that Mary had spoken to Daniel's parents beforehand, so I was surprised when they bowed deeply to me as soon as they saw me. Then, on the evening of the 31st, as planned, Daniel opened the door to his parents' living room. "I'm home. Welcome back." The one who welcomed Daniel with a smile was not Daniel's parents, nor Mary, but me. Seeing me, Daniel went pale. "Why are you here?" I faced the surprised Daniel and replied with a calm smile. "What's this? Weren't you married to me?" "No, this is." Daniel couldn't move, pale as a ghost. There stood Mary, Mary's father, and Daniel's parents, all present. They all glared at Daniel with stern faces. Mary spoke up quietly. "What's the meaning of this, Daniel? We just had a baby and needed help from our parents, so I asked you to work away from home. But behind our backs, you've been having an affair and leading a double life." Mary spoke so matter-of-factly that for a moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. "I'm just glad we're on the same side now." I began to berate him as well. "Daniel, every time you said you were going on a business trip, it seems you were meeting with your family. You were married. Why did you approach me? Did you think you could deceive me? This is marriage fraud. You're scum. And when I asked your company about your business trips, they said you hardly ever go on them. What are you thinking with such a beautiful wife and adorable daughter at home? I was such a fool to believe your lies." Confronted by both of us, Daniel sighed, then burst into laughter. "I wonder how I was found out. Living a double life was fun, especially with Rachel working well. It was easy to deceive you because we have the same last name, and you mostly work nights, so I could do whatever I wanted." Upon hearing those words, Daniel's mother, who had no recollection of raising such a son, gave him a punch in the face. I looked up at Daniel and said, "That's right. Besides me, you had 3 other lovers, didn't you?" As I thrust the incriminating photos at him. Startled, Daniel sputtered. "What is this? Are you stalking me? I'll sue you. These are all the pieces of evidence gathered by a private investigator I hired because I thought you were having an affair. We're going to make you pay damages to both Mary and me." As I said this with a firm tone, Daniel suddenly collapsed to the floor, begging for mercy. "I'm sorry, just spare me the damages. I'll continue my relationship with both of you, just spare me the damages," he cried out. I was speechless with disbelief, but it seemed that he was broke from spending too much on his other lovers. I couldn't care less. I left Daniel's childhood home with the words, "I don't even want to speak to you anymore. Let's deal with the rest through our lawyers." After that, I went through my lawyer to file a claim for compensation on the grounds of bigamy. I was grateful to my lawyer when the money was successfully recovered. I felt guilty towards Mary and tried to give her some of the compensation, but she refused. In fact, she was grateful for all the evidence I provided, and we became friends. According to Mary, she collected compensation from Daniel's other girlfriends and broke up with him. Of course, she made sure to get her fair share of alimony and child support. Apparently, one of his mistresses was a colleague of his, and Daniel was demoted at work and sent to a subsidiary company. At the new company, he's apparently being bossed around by a younger employee and cries every day. However, he can't quit his job because he needs the money to pay off the compensation. On the other hand, I moved out of the house I had been living in and rented a place that's just right for living alone, and I'm leading a carefree life. I now visit New York a few times a year and continue to be friends with Mary and her daughter. What a stench so ludicrous drenched in wine! My oldest son's wife, with devilish eyes, mocks me loudly while I lie bedridden with fever. Incredibly, the she-devil had the audacity to drench me with wine, while I'm sick. In my days, her cruel actions and words pierced my heart. We're heading back to our own place soon, so make sure you clean up before we get back, don't leave a speck of dust. Her arrogant comment made me want to suspect if she was possessed by a devil. But this attitude of hers isn't anything new. Since we started living together, she has always made me feel like an outsider, always playing mean tricks on me. Wow, that's lame, Catherine. You're so mean. Even my eldest son, joining in on his wife's behavior, claps his hands and bursts into laughter behind her. I wonder how he grew up to be like this. That's fine, I'm not bothered by this. So, what about it? You'll clean up, right? Not like you have any other choice. She looks down at me with a smirk. Throughout this, she continues to taunt me with phrases like, How filthy! Yes. I'll clean up. Unable to speak up, I reluctantly answered, biting my lips. Then I'll leave it to you. If it's not clean, I'm not responsible for what happens to this house. I understand. I was unable to talk back because of my fever, and I grudgingly replied as she wished. But my blood was boiling with anger. I was no longer able to forgive my eldest son and his wife. My name is Mary. I'm a 71-year-old homemaker. My husband Bob is a farmer. He's a bit of a stickler and not much of a talker, but I know he loves his family deeply, and I believe we've built a good relationship over the years as a married couple. Thanks to that, as a full-time housewife, I lead a peaceful life at home. Is what I wish I could say, but I live with my eldest son and his wife. I have 2 children, my eldest son John, who is turning 42 this year, and my second son James, who is 38. John got married late, and he brought his wife, Catherine, home only last year. Catherine seems to be working in a nightclub, and her flashy clothes and hairstyle shocked me at first. She's 40 this year, but she does look younger. She must be leveraging her looks in her work. She and my jobless eldest son, who is still working part-time jobs, seem to be a perfect match. My second son, on the other hand, is still single and works as an office worker. Unlike John, who has an attitude, James is a gentle and kind child. I sometimes worry that he might not be popular with girls because he's too kind, but that's also one of James's charms, so I want him to stay that way. Being blessed with 2 children, I wish I could say that my life was smooth sailing, but my peaceful life is now threatened by my eldest son and his wife. All this started from the moment I met my eldest son's wife. 1 year ago, Catherine, my eldest son's wife, came to our house for the first time. At that time, my husband was out at a gathering with neighboring farmers, and I was alone at home. To begin with, John hadn't said anything about getting married, so I was surprised when he suddenly said, "I'm bringing my girlfriend home today." Furthermore, when I asked for more details, Catherine was not just a girlfriend but someone he had already married a month ago. I was dumbfounded and scolded my eldest son, who had registered their marriage without even telling me about it. "You should have at least brought her to greet us before getting married, right? Have you even met her parents? When did all this even happen?" "Oh, give me a break. I'm not a kid. I don't need to consult my parents for everything. Stop nagging me." Looking at my eldest son's condescending attitude, as if he was belittling me, I wondered where I had gone wrong raising him. As for parenting, I've done about the same for both John and James, so it's surprising that they turned out to have such different personalities. Anyway, please get your life sorted here on out. Now, I don't even know how to greet your wife's parents. Yeah. I was slightly annoyed at the nonchalant tone in his response, as if he wasn't taking me seriously at all. But I swallowed my anger, knowing that it would get us nowhere if we kept arguing. As planned, John's wife came to our house later, immediately shouting, "Wow, this house is so cramped." Indeed, our house is not spacious. We bought this second-hand house 35 years ago, did some interior remodeling and started living here. All our friends were building new houses, so ours looked quite dated compared to others, and the old-fashioned architecture was quite apparent. But I loved our house. Thanks to my husband's hard work, we were able to buy a house that, while not our dream home, was cozy enough. We made adjustments when remodeling, while taking in our layout into consideration. Thanks to this, we have a space that is perfect for our lifestyle. John's wife mocked our house the moment she stepped her foot in here. And I just couldn't believe how she had the nerve to say such a thing. "Dirty," is all she says. John, who lived with us in this house up until 15 years ago, joined in her laughter. He's renting an apartment and living there now, but doesn't he have fond memories of this house too? This was surprise to me. But I guess it's fitting for an old lady like you. She just met me for the first time, but glared at me and made snide remarks. I was flabbergasted. Not only did she mock our house, but she even had the audacity to speak ill of her mother-in-law. I'm sorry, our house is so small. As you can imagine, the time after that was hell. I was so shocked by the words from John's wife that I was barely able to serve tea or sweets, and the couple just stared at me in disbelief. Hey, at least be prepared to welcome us. Poor Catherine, you gotta welcome her with love. Spilling tea, are you a newbie waitress or something? LOL. I endured the scene by plugging my ears to block Catherine's laughter. I'm sorry. I don't want this daughter-in-law to ever set foot in our house again. I prayed for him to never bring her over again. However, my prayer was never heard, and about half a year ago, John called me. It was bad news. Starting next week, Catherine and I will be living with you, okay? Live together? Why? Why not? There's no mortgage payment left for your house anymore, right? So it doesn't matter if 1 or 2 more people move in. You're not losing anything. I couldn't comprehend what John was saying. I was totally against living together with them. People always talk about mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues, and I bet John's wife would hate to live together, too. Above all, I didn't think I could live a normal life with my John's wife. I don't want you guys to move in here. I don't want any problems anyway. And first of all, has Catherine agreed to this? Catherine says she's fine with it. I just got an okay from her yesterday. So, we'll be moving in next week. Wait, just a minute. The call ended before I could reply. From next week, John and his wife are moving in here? I shivered at the thought. That night, I decided to discuss it with my husband. I don't see a problem with it. Excuse me? I'm fine as long as Catherine is fine with it. They can help with living expenses after all. I doubt that though. My husband, oblivious to Catherine's personality, was down to have them live with us. Our daughter-in-law herself said she's fine with it. So I understand why my husband isn't opposed to all this. But the problem is that our daughter-in-law can be a rather insensitive individual. If my husband is fine with it, then I guess it can't be helped. It's our son's request after all, I couldn't quite turn him away. So I told him that we agreed on letting him and his wife move in here. But in return, you must contribute to our household expenses. Got it? Yeah, I know. His nonchalant response made me wonder if this was going to be okay, but he's already in his 40s. I shouldn't have trouble having him pay for our expenses. And so, half a year ago, my eldest son and his wife moved in with us. At first, contrary to my fears, both of them were quiet and kept to themselves. I was fed up with how they barely helped around the house, but seeing my son go to work during the day and his wife doing the same at night, I refrained from meddling. However, both my son and his wife were living on opposite schedules, and I wondered how they managed to keep their marriage going. But it wasn't my place to pry into their business. While they stayed with us, the couple hardly ever talked to my husband. Given their work schedules and lifestyle differences, it was somewhat understandable, and my husband never took the initiative to strike up a conversation either. And like that, the first month passed without any major issues. It was around this time that I approached my son about our living expenses. Living expenses? You can't seriously think I have that kind of money. What? What he said was different from what we had agreed on before, so I was taken aback. Why should Catherine and I have to pay you? We don't have a mortgage to pay off, so don't be so stingy. With that, he left for his part-time job. Oh God. Even though I had my doubts about living together, I reluctantly agreed, only under the condition that they would help with our living expenses. Not contributing even a cent is unacceptable. I told the same thing to Catherine, but her response was, "Huh? Get the money from John." She didn't take me seriously either. I finally realized that I had been played by my son and his wife. From there, things only got worse. Perhaps because they were annoyed by me being a housewife, they started making snide remarks at me whenever they got the chance. Must be nice being old. You can live freely on your pension without having to work. That's right. You should at least do our laundry since you're not working. They said that I have it easy since I don't work. And that I should do all the chores since I'm a housewife. But they wouldn't contribute to our living expenses. Their comments were absurd. I tried to avoid their complaints as much as possible and endured their behavior. To make matters worse, they would always bully me when my husband was not around. They know that I'm getting old, and I don't have the energy or the will to fight back. When will this old hag leave? It'd be better without her around. Even Catherine, who used to mock this house for being small, was making comments. Their bullying didn't stop at verbal abuse. Hey, what's with this new shelf? I replaced that old, shabby dresser. It was so outdated. This one is cuter anyway. To my astonishment, they had thrown away our family heirlooms and replaced them with a new furniture while I was out. Worse, they'd chosen flashy, foreign-style furnishings that didn't match our aesthetic in the slightest. Oh no, my mother's mementos! I fell into a state of despair when I saw that they had even thrown out my dresser that I cherished, and the chest I had inherited from my mother. Why would you throw away others' stuff without even asking? Even I lost my temper at this point and raised my voice in anger, but they were unbothered. It's no big deal. What's the point of holding on to mementos? With every change of furniture, I was overwhelmed by the horrifying feeling that my home was being taken over. And what made me even angrier was why they didn't contribute to the household expenses at all, but they had money to buy furniture. My husband was busy with work and didn't have time to worry about what was going on at home, so he just watched John and Catherine in silence. This is our home too, so we can do whatever we want, right? I felt an inexplicable fear toward Catherine, who smiled smugly at me. As these incidents piled up, I was mentally drained. Then, as if to add insult to injury, my husband collapsed from overwork. This happened just a month ago. He needs to rest for a while. I was shocked by the doctor's words. I felt guilty for not noticing my husband's exhaustion because I was too busy dealing with John and his wife. Is that so? I'm sorry, Mary. No, I'm sorry I didn't notice. You need to rest, honey. I'll be back as soon as possible. My husband said that, but his condition didn't improve much, and a month has passed since then. As expected, the harassment from John and his wife worsened while my husband was away. They broke dishes, pushed me from behind and made me fall. It was blatant physical abuse, but I was too worried about my husband to think about myself. And then, the day finally came. I was doing laundry as usual in the morning. That's when I began to feel feverish. My head felt slightly painful. I measured my temperature just in case, and it was 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit. A mild fever. I was taken aback because I hadn't had a fever in years. I was probably worn out from everything I was going through. I was afraid I might faint if I continued to work while standing, so I laid down on the couch in the living room. I should be fine for a few minutes. Since my son and his wife were still asleep, I thought no one would complain about me lying down for a bit. However, the living room door opened. John and his wife entered with large suitcases. Mom, what are you doing there? Hurry up and do the laundry. Wow, she's so lazy for a full-time housewife. Pathetic. Well, I just have a slight fever today. I'll get up as soon as I rest for a bit, so wait. No, we can't wait. We're about to go out. Indeed, I could guess from their large luggage that they were about to go somewhere. But where are they going? We're going to visit my parents' house. Oh, I see. Safe travels. Before you go, could you bring me some water? My throat is all dry. I felt relieved when I heard that they were going to visit Catherine's parents, and I asked them to bring me some water. Even if they were mean to me, I thought they would at least do that much. Huh. Do it yourself. Well, fine. I'll bring it to you. Catherine, muttering under her breath, disappeared into the kitchen. She was back after a while, and out of the blue, splash. Something splashed on my face, and I was left speechless. Ha 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 ha. You reek. So funny, all covered in wine. Catherine, with the eyes of a demon, looks down on me and bursts into loud laughter. She had splashed wine on me while was laying down sick. With my consciousness fading, her heartless words and deeds pierce my heart. We're going back home now, so finish all the chores by we get back. Don't leave a speck of dust. Her comments are so harsh, I am convinced that she's possessed by a devil. Wow, that's lame, Catherine. You're so mean. Even my eldest son, joining in on his wife's behavior, claps his hands and bursts into laughter behind her. How did he end up like this? He's not my child anymore. Now I'm sure of it. No problem, this is nothing. So, you're gonna clean the house, right? Not like you have a choice anyway. She looks down on me. Dirty is all she says. Yes, I'll do all the cleaning. Unable to fight against her, I replied, biting my lips. Humph, the house better be cleaned by the time we get back. If not. Okay. I was down with fever, so I reluctantly agreed to her. But deep down, my blood was boiling with anger. I couldn't forgive my eldest son and his wife anymore. Catherine, who had splashed wine on my face, hastily left the house with John. The bitter frustration and the strong smell of wine made me grimace. But my condition only worsened as time passed, and I couldn't even get up to wash my face. Lying down unable to do anything, right when my consciousness began to fade, I heard the front door open. I'm home. The familiar voice made me open my eyes in surprise. Honey. Mary! What happened? My husband, seeing me lying weakly on the sofa, immediately rushed over to me. What's this smell? Did something happen? Catherine and John did this to me. Upon seeing my beloved husband's face suddenly, I couldn't contain my emotions, and I confessed everything that the two had been doing to me. It had been a while since the last time I saw my husband. In the middle of it all, I couldn't hold back my tears and started crying like a child. I see. I'm sorry, I never noticed. No, I'm sorry for not telling you properly. But why did you come back? The doctor told me I could go home because my condition has improved. I wanted to see you as soon as possible. I see. Thank you, honey. After that, my husband gently wiped my wine-soaked face with a damp towel and carried me to the bed. He tucked me under a warm blanket and even prepared a light meal and drink that was easy on my stomach, which brought tears to my eyes. I can't stand it anymore. Although they are our son and his wife, I can't tolerate them anymore. They don't contribute to the household expenses, and on top of that they are just awful. You're right. After hearing about all they did, I completely understand you. We can't live in this house anymore. My husband and I were enraged. We contemplated on how to fight back against John and his wife. Ideally, we'd like to kick them out of this house, but they wouldn't leave just because we asked them to. So we had no other choice but to take a different approach. To put it blunt, our plan was a forceful operation. It was something we had been slowly putting into action. Finally, the time had come for us to execute it. Surely, it would be a very effective strategy against them, who had constantly ridiculed me and my home. I met my husband's eyes and nodded. It's showtime. Over the course of several weeks, we carried out our plan, and things had finally settled. One day, we were relaxing on our living room sofa when my phone rang. It was from John, I chuckled. Finally, the moment had come. Swallowing hard, I answered the phone, trying to calm my pounding heart. Hey, you old hag, what the hell is going on here? Startled by the sudden barrage of abuse from the other end of the phone, I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Well, what's the matter? Aren't you at Catherine's parents' place? We just got back home. But why is our house gone? John's frantic voice was so funny to me I struggled to hold back my laughter. Well, you remember how Catherine told me to have the house cleaned by the time you guys got back? So we did. We cleaned the whole house. Not a speck of dust left, right? Yes, I took Catherine's word and used it against them. Sold the house and moved out, leaving nothing behind. It was something we had been considering ever since my husband collapsed from fatigue. We were getting older. Farming is labor demanding. We considered giving it up and living out our retirement years in peace. I thought my workaholic husband would oppose to the idea, but he was so affected by his collapse that he readily agreed to my suggestion. We always had inquiries about having our land for sale, so we were able to sell it with no problem. Things moved quickly after that, and before we knew it, our house was completely gone. We loved our previous house, but it was much easier for us to sell it off than plan about who to pass it down to. We moved to a rental apartment in the neighboring state. We thought it would be hard to take out a mortgage for a house at our age, so we agreed that a rental would be fine. And now, I'm on the phone with John from our new home. What the hell did you do? Do you think you can get away with this? What are we supposed to do now? Hearing the yelling from the other end of the line, I couldn't help but sigh. What the hell did I do? You guys are the ones who ruined everything for us. What are you saying? Barging into someone else's home and making a mess, not contributing to the household expenses, bullying an old woman like me, was it fun? Call me every name under the sun, I don't care. Damn it! John grunted in anger, and I couldn't help but chuckle. They probably never imagined for the house to be gone. Just the thought of them standing in front of an empty lot dumbfounded was cracking me up. Mom! What the hell did you do? John passed his phone to his wife. I remembered her smug smile when she poured wine on me, and felt nauseous. It's my house and I'll do as I please. It's none of your business. It totally is my business. We lived here too. It's our home as well. Huh? Our home? You never helped around the house, or paid any bills. How dare you claim it as your place? Besides, I know something about you, Catherine. What? You quit your job quite a while ago, didn't you? Or were you fired? Either way, it doesn't really matter. Yet you leave home every night you saying you're heading to work. What have you been doing exactly? That's... You're cheating, aren't you? Want me to tell John about this? What did you say? She didn't deny it, so I guess I was right. I had a hunch that Catherine has been cheating for several months now. She comes home from work at odd hours every day, and I started to notice a peculiar smell of perfume on her laundry, but she never wore them before. She might be able to fool my stupid son, but she can't fool me. You can't just run away when things get tough after all the things you did to us. Get out of my place right now. Fine, I get it. There's no way I can live in this dump anyway. Sounds like she has given up. With a rustling sound, she seemed to be leaving the lot. Hey, where are you going? I can't stay here any longer. I'm going back to my parents' house. Goodbye. Hey, wait a minute. John's confused voice echoed. He had no idea he was being cheated on. When Catherine left, he took out all of his anger on me. Old hag, what the hell did you say to Catherine? I only told her I would spill the beans about her affair to you. What? The way my John fell apart after that was terrible. Unable to accept the reality, he cursed and shouted harsh words like, shit. And, why the hell? Then he started yelling at me. How could you do this to me? I'm your son, for God's sake. You took it too far. After all the things he did, my son was still trying to play the victim. I started to feel bad for him, he's so pathetic. But that doesn't mean I'm ever going to live with him again. My son? You're no longer my son. Oh, and one more thing. What? Your phone contract is about to end soon, So this really is our goodbye? Huh? My son couldn't even breathe right and just gawked. I had cancelled my son's phone contract, which he had made me pay since he moved in. The contract ends this month, but today's already the last day of the month. From tomorrow, my son's phone will be useless. Now I can finally cut ties with you. Goodbye. Hey. Without waiting for a reply, I hung up the phone. I felt all the energy drain out of me in an instant, and I slumped onto the sofa. My husband said, "Good job," and brought me a warm cup of tea. Finally, I can sever ties with my eldest son. Just thinking about it seemed to heal all the hardships I had gone through. A week later, our intercom rang. I went up to check the intercom screen and saw my second son. The screen lets us see who's at the door without even leaving the comfort of our living room. Hey, Mom, it's been a while. Well, if it isn't James. So nice of you to visit us. Come in. As I reached to press the open button for the door, a gruff voice suddenly commanded, "Move it! Finally found you, old hag! Open up now!" To my surprise, John popped up, even though we never gave him our address. I wondered if he hired a detective or something. Open up? I bet you're just here to try and steal some money. Just leave right now. Ha! Keep talking like that and you'll see what will happen to this guy. John took out a blade that looked like a knife from his pocket. The sight made me shriek in fright, but I was more worried about James being in danger. I needed to do something quickly. Bro, what are you doing? You've been looking down on me. An office worker, you said. You make me sick. Bro, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Leeching off of Mom and Dad's money, living like a parasite. You son of a... Oh no, James is in trouble. Just when I blanked out in fear, I heard the blaring sirens of a police car, followed by the sound of heavy boots approaching. We're arresting you for attempted murder. Come with us. Hey, wait, what the hell? Through the screen, I saw John get taken down by the police, with his knife still in his hands. That's as far as I saw. I'm guessing that the neighbors called the cops after hearing the commotion at our place. According to James, his brother had a crazed look in his eyes, barely recognizable as his brother he once knew. Mom, sorry it's late, but I'm getting married. Oh, really? Congratulations. Thank you. Receiving such joyous news from James, my husband and I were overwhelmed with happiness, and we celebrated the occasion by having a feast with him. I am more than satisfied with just this child. Our eldest son can live his own separate life. My husband also seemed relieved that we were finally free of him. After that, John was taken by the police, and it was discovered that he had committed other crimes like theft and intimidation. The duration of his imprisonment is yet to be decided. Of course, he lost his part-time job. I felt profound sadness, wondering where I went wrong in raising a child who would resort to such crimes. Even though Catherine went back to her parents' home, it seems her irresponsible lifestyle hadn't changed, and I heard rumors that she was kicked out of there too. Turns out that the man she was having an affair with was married with kids, and she's now being sued by his wife. It's a disaster for her, but it's karma. Of course, John and Catherine had gotten divorced. I have stopped thinking about John, and I'm moving on, heading towards a new future in our new home. Mom, this is Rachel. She works as a pharmacist at a pharmacy near my workplace. Hello, mother-in-law. Nice to meet you. Rachel, nice to meet you too. The fiancé James brought home, Rachel, was a 32-year-old woman, polite, intelligent and instantly likable. It's going to get busy, isn't it? But I'm looking forward to it. James, Rachel, my husband and I all had dinner together, sharing laughter. One day, we'll gather around the table together again with our grandchild. Just imagining it was a beautiful scene.